Okay, I'm back. Shoutouts to Cubby because he actually sent me this clip, and I actually want to talk about it so badly because I think it misses such a critical point when it comes to objective setup. And I only see like the really good teams do it. So if this helps anybody, I'll be very happy. So with that being said, this is the clip. I'll just play it, and then I'll just narrate what's going on. So SCM really wants server control because it's Elder Drake. They're trying to push Tomio out, who successfully cleared the pink ward. Great on him for doing that. And also trying to make sure that both waves are neutral before they're able to take on this fight. So what happens? SCM sends their top pointer. He tries to keep the wave where it is, but because of extensive pressure by Zazel, and since Nautilus is pushed out of this try, then there's a temporary void where he has to actually take the slow way back in. And then they use this opportunity to collapse onto this specific side, isolate the Orianna, kill them before the fight even begins, and they get Elder and they win the game. The reason behind their movement, or at the very least, their reasoning, I understand. They want to control river. They want to make sure that the waves are neutral so that they are able to safely maintain their river control and at the same time have a first setup advantage against an Akali, which is very useful. With that being said, I just wanted to do a quick review of why these champions are really good in specific situations and how often they're actually being picked in pro, especially with the rise of champions like potentially like Ari and LeBlanc coming back into the meta with recent buffs. I think it's actually worth covering it before Worlds. What are the clear pros? Constant backline threat, right? A lot of these champions like Ari Charm, Akali E, if it lands onto the back line, you instantly win the fight because they will either have to be so hurt that they're out of the fight completely or just instantly die. And these champions are often way more mobile than your standard mages, so you have way more side lane volatility, so you're actually able to get side lane priority. And as a result of the silent priority, you're able to set up a neutral objectives using these. And oftentimes, you're able to hide the location of these champions that offer this high volatility. So you don't know which bush is suddenly going to have a Akali flip or a charm or a LeBlanc full combo. You just don't know, and this uncertainty creates very high difficulty situations for traditional front to back comps. Speaking of front to back comps, they're often picked into these champions, not necessarily because they're all win situations, but in the traditional front to back style, these champions suffer, right? Especially in the composition with a lot of AoE crowd control. They do not want to mix themselves into these situations because them by nature are highly vulnerable to damage themselves. So it's very difficult playing in a front to back style where its crowd control can be focused on them indirectly or directly through the chaos of the fight, or face checking into vision where there could be potentially these frontline champions waiting for them is even more dangerous. So all this thins down to this, right? Three, these champions require vision advantage to be truly effective. You want the opposing team to guess where they're coming from or have no idea where they're coming from. And if that mystery is lifted, less effective. And even more, if the champions forced to use resources to come into them first, while their skills are ready for them, even less effective. So the Akali team needs to be the one that is initiating fights to pull resources from the other team. So by the time that Akali makes a second entry, there's less threats, and as a result, the champion's risk or danger from the other team becomes manifold. So with that in mind, let's see a perfect example of a team that actually uses this really well, which is, of course, the best team right now, Genji. So if you look at this fight that they have against Arakan, this is the one that they kind of solidify like the fight, it's like the game itself. And there's two trump factors to consider, of course. This is not to say that like Hanwha messed up. Arakan is playing against their favor, right? Resistance is getting chunked is a huge deal. But the approach that they have towards this fight is very clear anti-Akali. Because what they know is that Akali hates playing into specific scenarios where crowd control could either be targeted towards the champ or inadvertently targeted towards the champ, where while they're doing their thing, they may get randomly tagged by a Talia E stun, Rakan charm or knockup, or sends out crowd control. So their strategy is to pull Akali into them. So the way that the fight starts is with the lights initially spending the resources to try to force them to use their resources for them so that Akali can make the easy same entry. They hold their skills until Akali makes the entry. And then, as you could see from here, as the fight turns out, Zeka actually gets knocked up after trying to finish Chobi by Rakani W. And unable to finish the entire combo, both the carries get to live, and the fight is won. If Genji opted to contest Arakan into that pit and potentially give Zeka multiple angles of flanks, then the fight would be very different. With that in mind, the objective should be then to put themselves in a situation where this is possible, right? So where do they go? Where do they start? Where do they start messing up? I argue that it is here, mainly because Varus was able to successfully hit midway first, and from this point on, they actually know exactly where Akali is in 2 seconds here, when the melee minion reveals Akali on the map. And from here, they could drastically adapt their style. So this is the layout, right? Cho'Gath is here. And bot lane is about to link up. And they have already pushed them out, cleared this pink, and are about to establish control. What are the two things that they have to their advantage? Well, for one, Luminosity has only one pink ward. And while they have two, and this bush was already pinked. To establish control on the mid side, right? So where do they deploy their two pinks, and how do they accomplish landing it, right? So in this situation, even if the Cho'Gath, the most tanky champion in their team, is actually positioned towards the backside, this is actually a good thing because of the way that Luminosity's team is positioned right now. Tomio effectively relinks with the team after deleting this ward and could potentially be sitting here. Zeyzal is sitting here right now along with Fake God, and also Tactical is sitting around here. This is an extensive situation where Luminosity has all the rights to start potentially contesting this choke again. What if SDM decides to make the choice of delving deeper into red side jungle? Because as you can see here, they will be vulnerable from this side and this side. So Cho'Gath's position, being late to this entry, is actually perfect for this situation because he could temporarily act as a buffer for their backline to be safe. Why is this so important? It's because, again, the concept of restricting Akali's movement to be more predictable so that they instantly know where to position their carries in opposition to that. So where would they drop their second picks? They'll drop one here so that Akali will be forced to guess and be really hesitant and moving into this area. Remember, there are a lot of lockdown CC that this champion, even with Flash, will instantly get killed by, right? Varus Root, Orianna Shockwave, Cho'Gath Feast, and Q. A lot of these long CC chains are something that these champions, even through Zhonya's, cannot guarantee that they'll survive. Even let's say that they use Zhonya's, they'll be either half HP or it's a quarter HP, and they would have to recall and rejoin the fight through teleport. So in this situation, Luminosity is given two options, right? Either, like I said, they could either try to reclaim the area here, have Akali position through here so that they could temporarily ignore the two pinks, and then start the fight here. And this creates a very strong advantage where the backline members are actually protected by this pink ward. And they're instantly able to pivot their attention to Akali if they see them in this area. And of course, with 3 sweepers, this area will be cleared and this area will be cleared, so there will be no wards to guarantee that Akali has a clear idea of where these carries are positioned. This is a very promising fight for SDM. And this is the one that they say, we're confident to fight this, right? If we don't make mechanical mistakes, there's a high chance that we come out on top. So Luminosity could opt to take this fight, and they could win it through mechanical outplay. But I would argue that this fight is actually in favor of SDM. So if they're smart and understand this, then what are their options, right? Well, if Akali is unable to enter this choke because they are not certain where these key CC lockdown champions are, then these guys also have to back up because they have to start the fight with a temporary numbers disadvantage. Of course, when they start the fight, their members' positions will be more cleared out, but that forces Akali to be on the reactive, and there's a high chance with the high DPS output of these champions, several members will be dead before the Akali can even try to make a difference. So they will naturally have to seed up this control as they are pathing down aggressively to plant their second pink, which would be here. This effectively shuts Luminosity out of their out of their jungle that does not rely on their side lane push. So, with that in mind, they have again it displayed two options. Either they can this wave bot wave is not touched, so they could either send 4 people here, try to push out this wave, potentially create a pocket for them to start a fight here. This is an ill-advised because of these pinks, which makes it a living nightmare for Akali to try to come in. So there's a high chance that they get sandwiched at 4v5, or they read the bluff and then they keep key members here to mark the Akali and then kill the mid laner. Both options are very unlikely to be successful for Luminosity. So in this context, what must they do? They must either regroup towards the Nexus, decide on which lane to push out, and then through that most likely mid, it could also be bot, but most traditional teams will choose mid, and they will push out through mid wave and try to reclaim the river vision through that way, right? And in this way, SCM, all they have to do is after they have established this vision, just prepare themselves for the next mid wave around this area through their control, and then just at the moment that you see the mid, all you have to do is run across river because Elder's already up. This puts them in a situation where they're, in order to contest their pink, they're going to have to face check them through these pink wards, and then this will inevitably lead to a lot of chunking, especially with Varus and Orianna and these type of champions in the team, along with a lot of their major crowd controls. So instantly, even without putting any pressure on river whatsoever, they're able to gain control. This is something that a lot of teams, especially T1 and LPL teams, are very good at doing. This would have most likely led to so much better outcomes for this team. So hopefully this is something that other teams can follow or try to learn, because this is how neutral objectives are determined. These are how key decisions and split making decisions, such as a pivotal champion showing up in midwave, can lead to. That leads to an end game position where securing Elder and Baron back to back will most likely result in teams winning. Thanks for watching.